What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to my channel, Money Moves with Kay. I'm Kay, and today we're going to talk about how to invest in real estate with little to no money. If that's something that you're interested in, please stay tuned for the video. Now, I kind of want to throw out a disclaimer here. In order to invest in real estate, in my opinion, I think you need one of these three things. And honestly, sometimes you may need all of these three things working together, right? You're going to need knowledge, money, or credit. And again, sometimes you may need all three of these things. But please come to the table with one of these three, okay? If not more. But these are the three key things you will need in order to secure these deals with little to no money. Make sure you stay towards the end of the video so that you can get some good nuggets from me on how to invest in real estate with little to no money. All right, so the first way to invest in real estate with little to no money is through wholesaling. To put it simply, wholesaling is connecting a motivated seller with a cash buyer. So you are the person that's connecting these two pieces, but of course they cannot meet, right? So as a wholesaler, I've wholesaled in the past. As you guys already may know, I started a wholesaling company when I was stationed in Germany, wholesaling in North Carolina. So basically what you do is you find a distressed property. They don't always have to be distressed, but in my example, here we are. So you find a distressed property, you contact the owner and say, hey owner, would you like to sell your property for $5,000, okay? Owner says yes, and that's very lucky because honestly, you have to call about 100 homes or contact about 100 folks in order for you to get one or two yeses, maybe three, but the pickings are slim, okay? So let's say that the owner says, absolutely, I'll sell for $5,000. Well, you would then take that contract, you're gonna assign the contract to an in-cash buyer who, let's say, agrees to purchase the property for $10,000, right? So your spread in that is $5,000. So $10,000, take away $5,000 is $5K, right? So that in a nutshell, and I go in depth, step by step on how to wholesale in another video, but that's basically what wholesaling is. So some of the pros to wholesaling is that you don't use your own credit. You also use very little money, if at all, right? There are free people search software that you can do for free. There are paid as well. So you use very little money to try to pay monthly subscriptions to these particular sites in order to find the homes and also find or contact the owners. In fact, I used no money. I was the freeway, right? So yeah, I did pay for postage, but mailing letters, calling folks was little to no money. So that's just one pro to wholesaling. Some other pros to wholesaling is that it allows you to get into the real estate industry, right? So you're talking to motivated sellers, you're talking to cash buyers. So you're rubbing elbows with the folks who actually have the money, right? So again, with wholesaling, you assign the contract to an in-cash buyer. You could purchase the property, but in the contract, of course, you're honest with the owner to tell them, hey, I am going to assign the property to an in-cash buyer. It may or may not be me. But in the event that it is not you, you don't have to pay closing costs. You don't have to pay a down payment. The person who's purchasing the property does all those things. So you're not only able to learn and gain experience, but you're also not putting this money up front down on a property. So those are all key things that are excellent with wholesaling. A couple more things with wholesaling that are pros is that it's an excellent profit, right? So you're not only learning, but you're making a profit. And lastly, you are helping sellers solve their problem. What is their problem? Their problem is the fact that they may have a home that they just can't sell. Maybe they're an absentee owner, which means they're out of town and they just really could care less about the property any longer. Maybe they just need help and they don't want to go through a real estate agent. They just want to close really quickly, get the cash and move on. So these are things that help sellers in these particular situations solve their problems. All right, so on to the cons. One con is that you are actually getting rid of the asset, right? So you're not holding on to the asset yourself because you are assigning the asset to an in-cash buyer, which may or may not be you. All the times that I wholesale, it was not me. I was building up my capital. So now we are cash buyers. But at that time, no, we were not paying for a property 50K cash because we didn't have it at that time. Now we do. So it is important to know that in order to build wealth over time, keep the asset. So I remember selling a duplex, and to me, that was my last wholesale deal. And the reason why that was my last wholesale deal is because I no longer wanted to give away those assets, meaning I didn't want to do all that work on the front end, finding the owner, finding the home, and then just assigning it to a cash buyer. No, the true meaning to wealth is holding on to those assets so that you have, and it builds you cash flow every month until you retire. and past retirement and on to different generations. So once I understood that, that was the moment I said I need to transition from wholesaling to being a cash buyer. Another con would be that it is very time consuming. It takes a lot of time to find these owners and the actual homes. And with that, it requires a lot of knowledge. So if you're coming into a deal and you have no clue what's going on, I suggest that you don't wholesale. You have to build your knowledge, have to do the groundwork, the foundational work, so that you can move on to successfully do these deals and pair these motivated sellers with these cash buyers. Another con to wholesaling is that a lot of cities and states are cracking down on wholesaling, meaning banning wholesaling altogether. In addition to that, there are times in which you may not sell. There are also times in which you will hear a ton of no's. And you have to be very strong-willed and determined to continue to push past those no's. If you have received any type of value from the video, go ahead and like, comment, and share the video with someone else. It allows everyone to be lifelong learners. All right, without further ado, let's get back to the video. So the second way to invest in real estate with little to no money is through a partnership. Partnerships are key because they can bring two people together to divide and conquer the task of finding good deals, right? So it goes right back to what I said earlier. Either you have the money or the knowledge. Sometimes you need both. In this case, two heads are better than one. So one person can bring the knowledge and know how to find these properties, and the other person can bring the money. The pros to partnerships is that it allows you to gain valuable experience that you probably couldn't do successfully by yourself. Now, another pro to partnerships is that you split the profits and the losses. Now, splitting the profits to some people might seem like, oh, I have to split the money with somebody else. But remember, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Splitting the losses is also a key thing as well, because you don't want all that responsibility, especially if you're new. Once again, if you are new, you might be a little scared to kind of go into a deal, which you shouldn't be. But you may be a little hesitant to go into a deal alone. Having a partner in that situation will allow you to not only split the profits, but also the losses. So on to the cons of partnerships. So the cons of partnerships is that each party may not bring the same amount of skills or resources to the table. Another con is that you are dealing with someone who has a completely different personality and a completely different way of handling the same situation. So it's very vital to outline expectations and roles in the very beginning, because if you wait until the very end when you're at the closing table and something goes awry, that could be a sticky situation. So make sure you communicate very effectively in the front end of the deal before you even partner with someone you either know or may not know. And it could be especially worse if you partner with someone you know, and it could be family, and that could cause long-lasting issues in the future. So please communicate and outline and define the roles and expectations each one of you have so that it eliminates some of the issues that may arise. The third way to invest in real estate with little to no money is through seller financing. Seller financing is basically the owner of a property acting as if they are the bank. So you as the buyer will go to the owner and make monthly payments, just like a mortgage, make monthly payments to the seller with interest over an extended period of time that you and the seller agree on. Some pros to seller financing is that not all the time do they look at credit, right? But if you do have good credit, you can leverage that in order to have a little to no down payment. And another great thing with seller financing that I truly love is that I feel like everything is negotiable. So it's really up to the seller and you to sit down and negotiate back and forth what will and will not work within a seller financing deal. You can kind of negotiate and leverage the fact of the repairs into your negotiations as well. So for instance, if your property that you're looking at and trying to do seller financing with has a ton of repairs that are needed, you can say, hey seller, I see that this particular property needs $10,000 worth of repairs. Can I use that $10,000 that I would place into repairs and rehab and use it as my down payment? Okay, so that's just a good way to negotiate within a seller financing situation. You can even negotiate principal only payments. It's your job as the buyer of the particular property to try to figure out what is the owner's pain points. Through seller financing, the buyer can also avoid PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. Some of the cons to seller financing is that the owner must own the property free and clear. What is free and clear? Free and clear basically means that the owner should own the property without a mortgage on it, right? So they own it outright. They own it, okay? So the reason why you need to go to a property owner that has the property free and clear is because you cannot sell or finance successfully if the owner has an existing mortgage on the property. Now, although I list this as a con, about 30% of homeowners own their property outright and free and clear, right? So it's not as difficult as it may seem to find these property owners, but please, 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 look for the properties in the neighborhoods that are eyesores. Those typically are properties that are free and clear. Not all the time, right? But in my experience as a wholesaler, I would go after those particular properties because I would have more room to negotiate a lower price, right? Because if there's a $30,000 mortgage on a property and I go in and say, well, would you take $20,000? They're going to tell me no, because I still owe $30,000 on the property. So look for those abandoned properties, and I have a link in the description of a video that I did on how to find these properties for free, these distressed properties for free. So I give some great tips on how to find these properties. So look at that video, go through these neighborhoods, drive for dollars, and do all the other strategies I mentioned to try to find these, they call them wedge deals, but try to find these deals in these neighborhoods that are eyesores. Other cons to seller financing is that there are higher interest rates and there are fewer regulations to protect the buyer. Loan terms in the seller financing are also shorter, so they don't necessarily do the traditional 15 to 30-year mortgage. You can negotiate that. You can negotiate that over an extended period of time, but they typically go 1 year, 5 years, etc. So a shorter time span in which they will like their money. In addition, with seller financing, you may pay less upfront, but you're going to pay more on the back end, which means that a lot of times you are overpaying either with interest or just the actual asking price of the property. You're overpaying for the property. So those are just a couple of cons that come or are associated with seller financing. There are more pros and cons, of course, but those are just one of the ones that I wanted to highlight in this video. That's the end of my video. Thank you so very much for watching to this point. Until next time, you guys stay blessed. Peace.